What's going on, everybody? I'm Carson Breber,
I'm Logan Camden.
and this is Hoop Nerds. All right, so this is going to be episode 2 of our series in which we break down the division previews for each division in the NBA. And last week we did the Northwest Division. Today we're going to be doing the Pacific Division. Logan, who do you have on top of the division?
I think it's pretty obvious who most people should be going with. I am going with the Los Angeles Clippers to finish as the 1 seed in the West and 1 seed on top of this division and finish with a record of 61-21. What do you got, Carson?
I have a similar prediction. I have the Clippers winning the conference at 59-23, earning the 1 seed. This number might be too high, I think, even though I think they're clearly the best team in the league, just because Paul George is supposed to miss about 20 games to start the season with his shoulder injury. Kawhi will probably miss around 15 games for load management. And I really think that if you put Paul George on this team for a full season, they're more like a 62-win team because the roster is outstanding, Logan. Already, they obviously won 48 games last year, and they only really lose Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Danilo Gallinari as far as relevant guys from that team. So they retain most of their core, and they add 2 of the most complementary stars in the league, and no team in the league has this combination of star power. You're talking about 2 top 10 guys in Kawhi and Paul George, and then 2 of the 5 best bench players in the league as far as Lou Williams and Montrezl Harrell. To me, that's unmatched.
I mean, I agree. You cannot say enough good things about this Clippers squad. They're star-studded and they're deep. Pat Bev is a great perimeter defender and good three-point shooter. Shamet's a marksman. Kawhi and Paul George were MVP candidates and, as you said, 2 of the best two-way players in the league. And I love this bench. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the bench is outstanding. You already mentioned Shamet shot 45% from 3 when he was on the Clippers last year. Bev, one of the best defensive guards in the league, and a 40% three-point shooter last year. Although those guys are actually going to be starting now that I'm thinking about it, but still role players. And then Ivica Zubac, a genuinely great scorer, but is defensively deficient. But I think that looking at the stars, Kawhi and Paul George, they're the best offensive and defensive wing tandem in the league. Kawhi averaged 27-7 last year on 50% from the field, 37% from 3, and 85% from the line. Paul George was 28-8-4 on 44% from the field, 39% from 3, and 84% from the line. And they were both all defense, with first team honor for Paul George and second team for Kawhi. If you're looking at the fit, Paul George is an excellent off-ball star thanks to just that catch and shoot ability. Kawhi is one of the best ISO guys in the league, and they both, seemingly at least from the outside, have relatively small egos for stars. Should be willing to acquiesce. My only question for this offensive unit, because there's so much talent we see with the shooting of Shamet and Bev, the inside scoring of Zubac, and obviously just the all-around scoring ability of Kawhi and Paul George, is there's not a single natural playmaker in the starting 5. So is the ball going to move properly, or is it going to get stuck? To me, this isn't a huge concern because 4 of the 5 guys are great shooters and they can all score. And 2 of them averaged 26 or more points per game efficiently last year, which is obviously an incredible resume, but how's the ball going to move?
I think Paul George and Kawhi are going to be ball dominant in this offense, as well as Pat Bev. I think there's no dominant great playmaker on this squad, but there's 3 pretty good playmakers, and I don't think they'll have any trouble figuring out how to move the ball.
Okay, and then moving on to the bench, I love the addition of Mo Harkless when you're talking about wing defense. We'll see if Jerome Robinson is ready. He was obviously the controversial 13th overall pick in the 2018 draft, only played 33 games as a rookie, 3.3 points per game, 40% from the field, 32% from 3. Not great, but we'll see what strides he can take this year. And then the guys to watch are, of course, Lou Williams and Montrezl Harrell. They give you an elite offensive pairing by standards of the league out of your second unit.
I agree. I'm so glad you brought up Mo Harkless because he was one of my favorite additions in the offseason. A great perimeter defender. He doesn't do a whole lot else, but that's all they need. You have Lou Will and Montrezl Harrell off the bench. You're not going to need a whole lot of scoring, but you do need perimeter defense, and Mo Harkless brings that every night.
Yeah, and of course, Lou Williams has sort of earned his reputation in the league as one of the best bench scorers, but over the past couple of years, he's really grown as a playmaker. Last year, averaged 20 points and 5.4 assists per game, and then Montrezl Harrell is one of the best finishers in the league, flat out. That's not with the qualifier of bench players. 16.6 points per game last year, 62% from the field. He's scrappy on the offensive boards, and the pick and roll with Lou Williams is unreal. So we obviously have to talk about the fit of putting 2 superstars together here. For me, I'm confident in the fact that Doc Rivers knows how to handle these star-driven teams. He's done it before. I think Doc can control this team, and I think the egos are reasonable. What do you think?
I agree. Doc's a tremendous coach, as well as I think Kawhi can almost adapt to any situation. I don't think he'll have any problems moving in with Paul George here, and I think it's something they've wanted to do for a long time. How do you think they'll mesh together?
Yeah, well, I think you make a good point. Kawhi's an adaptable player, but if you're talking basketball-wise, Paul George is probably outside of Steph Curry the second best off-ball superstar in the league, maybe in my opinion, just because he's such a great catch-and-shoot guy. So he does not need to dominate the ball to be effective. Obviously, can score off the dribble at an elite level. So I think it's going to be a great fit. I think this team can be top 3 in the league on both sides of the ball when they're engaged. And the question is, who's going to stop them?
I don't see anyone stopping him. I got him going to the finals. As Michael Jordan so eloquently put it, the ceiling is the roof for this team.
I tend to agree. I think that this is the championship team this year. Only thing to me that could really derail them would be health.
Couldn't agree more.
All right, who do you got next for us, Logan?
So the next team here, I have them finishing as the second seed in the West, and that is the Los Angeles Lakers. I have them finishing at a record of 57-25, and I think that could be a little inflated due to maybe resting Anthony Davis and LeBron James, but I don't think that they want to go up against the Clippers in the second round, and they're going to try to finagle a second or third seed to avoid playing the Clippers.
Yeah, so I have the Lakers as the 3 seed, 52-30. To me, they're probably actually the second best team in the West as well. I agree with that analysis. I'm just predicting a slight lack of effort and, of course, a little bit of a transition period. So why don't you talk about, obviously, the first thing that comes to everyone's minds when they talk about this team, which is the pairing of LeBron and Anthony Davis?
I think it's going to work. I've heard a lot of people hating on it, but for me to count out LeBron James, the best player on the planet, in my opinion, is just ignorant of me. I think that he can mesh with anybody, and Anthony Davis isn't really a dominant ball handler, and what I mean by that is, he's not going to eat up the rock. LeBron can still have the ball in his hands, is what he loves to do, and Anthony Davis has moderately improved his shooting. He's still a low-post guy, but I think the pairing is going to work well together. I had this team maybe finishing as the 1 seed until Boogie went down, but I think LeBron and AD are going to work together great, and they're going to have an awesome season.
Yeah, I also like the fit. I think that also just the raw talent to me is remarkable when you're talking about LeBron. To me, is still the best player in the league until I see otherwise. And with Kevin Durant out, I think that Anthony Davis is the 4th best player in the league. So 2 top 5 players in the league. You give LeBron a rim running threat like he's never had. That transition offense can be absolutely lethal with LeBron handling the ball, Danny Green in the corner, and Anthony Davis cutting to the rim. So to me, I broke this down because I like the Lakers. I think you have to break this down, though, into what's going to work and the question marks. To me, obviously, the first thing that's going to work is LeBron and AD. To me, I think that AD can have an MVP season. It depends on how much they choose to unleash him, but if you're looking at the last 3 years, 27.5 points, 11.6 rebounds, and 2.4 blocks per game on 52% from the field and 81% from the free throw line. He's grown as a playmaker. He averaged 3.9 assists per game last year. Ball handler, you mentioned the shooting, 34% from 3 over the last 2 years. One of the league's most dominant scorers, rebounders, and defensive playmakers, and come playoff times, I think that AD can really utilize all of his physical tools on defense and show more than just the flashes of the freakish shot blocking that he has shown and become a consistently legit monster on defense.
As well as this year, he finally has something to compete for instead of toiling away on a bad New Orleans squad. He has something to work for. Therefore, I think his numbers are going to be better and they're going to win more. Yeah,
and Anthony Davis has probably been a top 10 defensive player in the league without even really trying all the time. I mean, as I said, he's been maybe the best defensive playmaker, but on a play-to-play basis, at times he's floated around. I don't think that's going to happen now. And then, of course, he's been healthy, which has been rare in his career. He played 75 games in the 2016-17 season and 17-18 season, and most of the missed games last year were out of the tanking interest. And then, of course, LeBron's going to blend well. He's just extremely intelligent, one of the best scorers and passers in the league. Danny Green is a great defender and a knockdown shooter, 46% from 3 last year. I really believe in those 3.
I pose 2 questions for you. Who do you start at center, and where does Kyle Kuzma play in this offense? And is it off the bench or is it starting?
So, good questions. I think that to me, you probably start JaVale McGee. I like JaVale more than Dwight, especially as a fit with this team, just because he can get up and down the court better, more of an athletic presence. We don't really know what Dwight's going to look like, but he has been a bit of a slow, lumbering, still obviously a low post guy, whereas JaVale doesn't need the ball at all. He's going to be catching lobs and scoring off rebounds. And then I think Kuzma has to come off the bench, just because I think otherwise you're looking at a really big, clunky lineup. You either try to start Kuzma at the 2, which I think would just be hideous, and then you're running LeBron at point, and then that just to me gets weird, too big of a lineup. Or you start Rondo, Danny Green, LeBron, Anthony Davis, and JaVale or Dwight. And to me, I think that that's what you do. Do you disagree?
No, I agree. I think you have to bring Kuzma off the bench, mostly because there's not enough ball to go around. And a guy like Kuzma off the bench for scoring, that's awesome. That's amazing. Yeah. Another scoring talent where he is going to utilize all of his abilities to score the rock by himself, because the rest of this bench, I'm not a fan of.
Yeah, so this is a good segue, I think, into the many question marks that I have written down. And the first one is, what really is Kyle Kuzma in this league? You know, he shot just 30% from three last year on 6 attempts per game. No real defensive or playmaking ability. This year, to me, he can either sort of make or break his place in the league. What do you think, Logan?
I wouldn't phrase it like that.
Okay.
Make or break, that's not a good phrasing of it. Kuzma is a scorer. He's a bucket. That's kind of about it. He's a decent rebounder. I don't think his game develops anywhere past where he's at now, honestly. I think he's kind of capped out with where he's at, unless he can become a knockdown shooter or something. Yeah. What you've seen so far is kind of what you're getting.
So I guess maybe make or break was a little strong, but my real point is, can he become more efficient? Can he improve that outside shot? Because right now, he's sort of just a volume shooter, and that's the only reason he's really putting up the scoring numbers. Anyone
can improve their shot, as you see with a guy like Brook Lopez, who was nowhere close to being a shooter at the start of his career. Guys like Grant Hill. Anyone can develop a jump shot, but it takes a lot of work. And if Kuzma comes off the bench, it scares me, because if there's no one else to shoot the shots, his shooting percentages could plummet after already being pretty low.
Yeah. Okay, so some other question marks I have. How does Rajon Rondo fit into this lineup? What can he contribute on defense? How will he still impact the game with the ball mostly in LeBron's hands and obviously not being a strong shooter? Defensively, I think this team is going to ride a lot on LeBron and Rondo. We'll see how much age really plays a role in their sort of apparent defensive decline versus just maybe a lack of effort last year.
I'm not a Rondo guy. I'm not a huge fan. I think you need a shooter.
What about playoff Rondo?
Playoff Rondo is the greatest player of all time. I love having a shooter at point, and Rondo is the opposite of that. You already have your dominant ball handler and playmaker in LeBron. So to me, it just clogs up the court. Rondo's not going to knock down a jump shot. I'd take a guy like Jason Terry or something now. At least he can knock down a jump shot.
42-year-old Jason Terry. Another question that we brought up earlier, will Dwight Howard be a net negative to this team? Going to crowd the paint? Seems like a liability on defense at this age. Locker room distraction. What do you think?
No, I think Dwight's going to come in here and play solid ball.
You think so?
I really do. I think, don't get me wrong, you're not getting 2010 Dwight. You're not getting prime Dwight, but you're getting a Dwight that knows he's in a reserved role, and he's just going to come in there. I think maybe play a loose comparison here, maybe like a Chris Anderson role for those old Heat teams.
Interesting.
He's going to sit in there. He's going to set screens, rebound, block shots. It's not going to be nearly as effective as he was when he's in his prime, but I think he'll play solid minutes.
Now, we know that in the past, obviously, a huge point of contention in Houston was the fact that Dwight did not want to play in the pick and roll, which is where he likely would have been the most effective player, wanted to just play out of the low post. Hopefully, at this age, understanding he's got limited opportunities, he can get into that pick and roll game with LeBron, because I do think there's some potential there. Another question, can Avery Bradley bounce back after a terrible year? You know, he put up some quote unquote garbage season numbers for Memphis at the end last year, but he averaged 8.2 points per game on 38% from the field and 34% from three for the Clippers. He's part of a bench unit that to me is very questionable.
I agree. And isn't it funny that, what was it, 3 years ago when everybody thought that Avery Bradley might take that next step and become an elite perimeter defender and 3-and-D guy, maybe comparable to Klay Thompson. Avery Bradley on this bench is maybe next to Kuzma, maybe the best player, and that's kind of tough to say. I don't love this bench unit, and I really don't like Kentavious Caldwell-Pope.
So that was another question mark I've written down. Is this bench just flat out bad? I mean, as a Warriors fan, I've seen Quinn Cook play for the past couple of years. He has his moments, but is not a consistent guy. KCP, as you said, is sort of hit and miss as a shooter. Been a little more consistent lately, and then you have Bradley, Kuzma, Jared Dudley, JaVale McGee, or Dwight Howard. Talen Horton-Tucker, the rookie out of Iowa State, he might end up actually being a valuable wing for this team just because, we haven't seen what he is in the league yet, so there's a little bit of optimism.
If Jared Dudley goes up against Ben Simmons, maybe he'll be effective, but that's kind of the only thing he can do.
And so the final question that I have written down, how will Frank Vogel do as a coach here? Because obviously we know a lot of the time if you're talking about a coach that was not LeBron's guy, there can be conflict. It's an interesting situation to be brought into. Jason Kidd is on the staff. There's already rumors about the whole hierarchy of power there. What do you think?
I don't know. Yeah. And it's tough to say. I really expected them to sign, who was the rumor? Was it Ty Lue?
There was a lot of talk about Ty Lue, yeah.
I expect them to bring in Ty Lue. I don't know what Frank Vogel's going to do. I think the better question is, what is LeBron going to do as coach? It's not Frank Vogel's team. It's never been. Maybe next to Eric Spoelstra, that's the only head coach that LeBron's had. LeBron is still going to be the coach of this team, despite what anybody thinks.
And to me, it's interesting because Frank Vogel obviously did an amazing job of maximizing the talent with those Indiana teams. Didn't have quite as much success in Orlando, but those Indiana teams were predicated on defense. To me, the defense is a serious question mark for this Lakers team. I think the offense is going to be outstanding, but basically, I don't mean to sound low on this team. I really believe in the talent. I do think they'll be the second best overall team in the West, but outside of LeBron, AD, and Danny Green, a lot of these questions have to be asked, I think, and they may not matter in the long run just because of the overwhelming talent, but there's a lot of things that could go either way for a lot of players this year.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Who do you have as third in this division?
I have my Golden State Warriors, and again, I am from the East Bay, so I am not a bandwagoner from Milwaukee. I have them going 48-34 and finishing as the 5th seed, which I have actually as being the same record as the Rockets, but if I have to pick one, it's definitely the Warriors.
I have the Warriors also finishing as the 5 seed, but I have them finishing 51-31. I honestly think a lot of people are still sleeping on this team.
I agree. I mean, I think a lot of the stuff that you heard from, people who consider themselves to be knowledgeable was a lot of criticism of the fit with the D'Angelo Russell signing. To me, that seemed overly simplistic. People were basically looking at it as like, oh, it's 2 guards. They both need the ball. What are you going to do? But I love the D'Lo signing. If there's one thing this team needs, and this was made painfully obvious in the finals last year when the Raptors ran a freaking box and 1 on Steph Curry, is the fact that they need another offensive creator. D'Lo is a very smart offensive player, was already one of my favorite players in the league. He's a brilliant passer when he keeps his head up. He has outstanding touch as far as shooting and passing. Last year, he averaged 21, 4, and 7 on 43.5% from the field and 37% from 3. Now, D'Lo obviously loves picks, which the Warriors system has historically not involved very much, but he took more than anyone else in the league besides James Harden last year. But to me, the solution is relatively simple. You just slide Steph off the ball a little more. No real problem there because Steph is by far the best off-ball superstar in the NBA. And then you just hammer that D'Lo Draymond pick and roll. You get Draymond on the short roll. We saw that working really well with Steph and Draymond in the playoffs last year with KD out. You give Draymond either the playmaking opportunity on the roll, or you can have him shoot that floater of his, finding cutters, whatever it may be, or you can have D'Lo go to work. And you're going to have Steph off the ball there, which obviously will create opportunities. To me, 3 passers of this caliber in a Steve Kerr offense is seriously exciting when you're talking about Draymond, Steph, and D'Lo.
Steph Curry is still the best shooter around. And as you stated, the D'Angelo Russell acquisition is one of my favorites of the offseason. It will give Steph a little bit of a break, and allow him to play more off ball. As you said, D'Lo's a great passer and a good scorer off ball. He's a shooter. My favorite part of this is now that Kevin Durant's out and with the Clay injury, Draymond will have drastically more value this season. He is going to be able to have the ball. He's going to be able to score a little more. He's going to be able to have a little more room to defend. I love the fact that Draymond is going to be back and doing big things in this offense and defense.
Yeah, and we saw a sensational play from Draymond in the playoffs last year when he had to step up. He's going to have to step up this year, and I believe, too, that he will be motivated. You mentioned Steph Curry. He averaged 27, 5, and 5 last year on 47% from the field, 44% from 3, and 92% from the free throw line last year. I see no reason why he shouldn't do that again or be even slightly better.
I agree. Again, as I said, Kevin Durant's out now, and it's always been Steph Curry's team, but he's back to being the man, and I think his numbers may go up again.
Yeah. And then looking at the surrounding pieces, Looney is great, of course. He's a cerebral, defensively solid guy. He plays hard. Alfonso McKinney will need to ramp up the consistency as a shooter. I believe he shot around 35% from 3 last year, but was a little hit and miss there. I really like the signing of Omari Spellman, or I should say the acquisition, His shooting ability to me is huge for this team. Yeah, Willie Cauley-Stein signing he's a mixed bag, but he can score inside. What do you think about some of the guys around the Stars? I really like Willie Cauley-Stein, and honestly, it's kind of it. I have no idea how this bench is going to play. I am lost. Jordan Poole's on the bench now, and he's an old Michigan guy, right? Kind of looks like a pit bull. That's how I remember him. I really liked watching Jordan Poole at Michigan. I think he'll fit well off this bench. The rest of the bench, I don't know. I'd love if you could break it down for me. Yeah, so to me, one of the big question marks with this team is the bench shot creation. I think this is a little bit scary. The Warriors probably need Jordan Poole to be the offensive leader for the bench unit. And I say it's a little bit scary because he was somewhat erratic at Michigan, and his only real value is as a scorer. And even then, it's mostly as an outside shooter. But looking at the guys guys around them. Jacob Evans was awful last year. I actually liked him coming out of Cincinnati. He was a nice 3-and-D guy, did not show that potential last year. And ultimately, they're going to need these young guys, these rookies like Eric Pascal and Jordan Poole to step in. We'll see how that goes. To me, the other question mark is the overall defense. I love the offensive backcourt of Steph Curry and D'Angelo Russell. I think that it's going to be the best in the league. Defensively, it's somewhat frightening.
I'm glad you brought that up because I think that when Klay Thompson gets back, if it's in the playoffs, I think all your defensive warriors will go out the door. You'll have Draymond out there. Willie Cauley-Stein will be a decent interior defender.
Or Looney. Looney's probably a better defender.
I agree. Whoever you put out there, it's going to be a good unit that can, I guess, help out Curry and Russell because, as you said, it's not a good defensive backcourt. I'm not a huge fan of it. But if they can put up the points, and when Klay and Draymond are out there, obviously Klay will probably not be back until the playoffs, but that's all they have to do. If you get there and you can get Klay healthy, there shouldn't be any problems.
Yeah, and of course, you mentioned the return of Klay. To me, that is a huge deal. Klay Thompson will obviously be missing most of the year after that devastating ACL tear in Game 6 of the Finals. I think when he comes back to the playoffs, I'll take the Warriors to win a series over Utah. I don't think I can take them to beat the Clippers, but I think that they're going to win a playoff series. There's so much talent there.
I kind of want to see that. I think the deciding factor, if I had to pick between the Warriors and the Clippers, would be the Clippers bench unit. It's beautiful.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. I think that is probably the difference. But the offense for the Warriors this year is going to be amazing. I'm really excited to watch. Who do you have next for us?
So maybe this is a strange pick, but I am really high on the Sacramento Kings this year. I have them finishing as the 8th seed and finishing with a record of 42-40.
Okay, I have the Kings going 41-41 and finishing as the 9 seed. Last year, they went 39-43. They were 17th in offensive rating and 21st in defensive rating. Obviously, a coaching change here from Dave Joerger to Luke Walton. We'll see if Walton can take them a step further. Dave Joerger has succeeded in both Memphis and Sacramento now relative to expectations, but he's gotten booted from both spots. What do you think about the coaching change?
Not a huge fan. I'm a Dave Joerger guy. I love what Dave Joerger did in Memphis. Grit and grind, run a lot of defense, and it works, as you saw. I really like the young squad that Sacramento has here, but Luke Walton didn't impress me in LA. I don't know if that's because of politics or what, but he is going to have to improve on the record and potentially make the playoffs to really make his mark here in Sacramento. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that Walton's a fine coach. I don't think he really got a fair shot in LA, and I like Dave Joerger too. Apparently he's hard to work with, which obviously we can't speak to, but as far as X's and O's and getting the results, he's done a good job. Looking at the personnel changes for this team, they lost Willie Cauley-Stein, who of course went to the Warriors, but they replaced him basically with Trevor Ariza, Corey Joseph, and Dwayne Dedmon. To me, that's a clear upgrade in depth.
It's so strange to me to see that this team is even relevant at this point. Of course, they nailed it on the head with the De'Aaron Fox pick, but you take a look at when they had DeMarcus Cousins and you take Willie Cauley-Stein, a center, and then you take Georgios Papagiannis, and then you trade for Skal Labissiere. So for this team to even be relevant, and of course, after the Pelican trade, not a lot of people said that the Kings won, but I think it's clear that they did now. Buddy Hield has become one of the best complementary pieces and off-ball shooters in the league, and I really think this year that De'Aaron Fox is going to step into that upper echelon of point guards in the NBA.
How high do you think De'Aaron Fox jumps this year in your point guard rankings?
Just off the top of my head, he's top 10 now. Would you agree?
Ooh, I don't know if I can. The point guard position is just so loaded. I love De'Aaron Fox. I think top 10's a little too high right now. He's on the border, though, I'd say.
I'd say he jumps into the top 8.
I like it. So to talk about those young guys, you mentioned Buddy Hield, who they obviously got in that DeMarcus Cousins trade. He was amazing last year. There's no other way to put it. 21 points a game, 46% from the field, 43% from three. And of course, his backcourt mate, De'Aaron Fox, was sensational. Improved as a jump shooter, playmaker, decision maker, averaged 17, 4, and 7, along with 1.6 steals per game on 46% from the field, 38% from three. To me, Hield was the leading scorer last year, but the team should really go through Fox to be most effective. He opens up opportunities for everyone around him with his explosiveness and his passing. What other young guys do you like on this squad?
I think you have to mention Marvin Bagley. I think he's going to get even better this season and just improve overall. Bagley's still a young guy, and I think the core here, Fox, Hield, and Bagley, are going to help Sacramento if they can stay together. And this is going to be a dangerous team very soon in the West. I want to ask you, what are your thoughts on Harrison Barnes and Dwayne Dedmon?
So to me, Barnes is an interesting fit. I think he's improved his fit as improving as sort of just a pure catch and shoot guy. Shot 41% from three when he was with the Kings last year. If he can keep that up and sort of abandon the post play that he was more dependent on in Dallas and emulate sort of that Warriors model of Harrison Barnes, but a little older, a little wiser, and a little better, he should be a good fit. He was obviously extended for 4 years, $85 million in the offseason. I'm not sure how to feel about that yet. I'm worried it might handcuff them a bit, even though it isn't huge money by these days standards, but I'd like to see really how Harrison Barnes fits into this unit. He's going to be the third guy if they're going to have success.
And
or maybe the fourth.
And you know what I really love on this team?
What?
The bench unit. I'm a huge fan of the acquisition of Trevor Ariza, and I just like the other guys on the bench unit, Bogdanovich and Corey Joseph.
Yeah.
I'm a real big fan.
Oh, absolutely. The bench is honestly really good. You asked me for my thoughts on Dwayne Dedmon, too. I like that fit. He can shoot. He can protect the rim, which is a needed skill set for this team because Bagley is obviously a bit defensively deficient right now. But yeah, Corey Joseph is a playmaker and a shooter. Bogdan is obviously a great scorer. He can actually playmake when he keeps his head up. He can be a bit of a ball stopper at times, and a little shoot happy. But Ariza, valuable playmaker, defender, and shooter, and a veteran presence. Nemanja Bjelica can shoot the rock. He was 40% from three last year. And I love Harry Giles. He's smart. He runs the floor well. He's got great touch, and he's got defensive potential. To talk about Bagley a little bit, you mentioned him earlier, but I have a couple thoughts on him. He had a really effective rookie year on offense, averaging 15 and 7.5 on 50% from the field and 31% from three, only 1.5 attempts a game from three. But to me, for Bagley to really take the step forward, that can guide this team forward. If he expands the range on offense, he's already a beast on the offensive boards, but he sort of has his bread and butter. You know, he loved to spin left last year. I had a friend that every time he would get the ball in the post would say spin left, and most of the time he was right. He has nice touch. To me, can he add more moves to his bag? Can he improve as a passer? Can he grow on defense? How can he really take a step forward in year two?
As you said, I think he needs to develop his jump shot a little more, and you can say that for any guy. I pose a question for you, Carson.
Yeah.
If all of these guys leap and they take the next step, Fox moves into the upper echelon, Hield improves on his game, and Bagley improves his game, is there enough ball to go around for three young superstars?
I actually think there is because Buddy is primarily just a shooter, and obviously he can shoot off the dribble. He showed that last year that he's actually very good at it, but you keep the ball mostly in Fox's hands. You establish Bagley as really a rim runner. He'll have to play out of the post a little bit, but I think you can work with that. And if he can work on his jump shot, if he can stretch the floor out, then I think it's even better.
And my follow-up question is, if all of these guys move and they become better players, does that X Harrison Barnes right out of the offense?
It's an interesting question, and that's why I think Barnes has to sort of make himself valuable here. He can't assume that his position is safe. He can't think that I'm going to dominate the ball, I'm going to play out of the post, I'm going to size people up all the time, because he actually has to fit around the core of this team, which is these really young guys. Buddy Hield isn't that young. He's like 26, but...
I have to say, if the chemistry improves and there are no injuries on this squad, I think they could even be higher in the conference for me. Yeah,
I think there's serious playoff potential. To me, it's tough to pick against the Spurs just because I like a lot of the pieces they have and Pop, and obviously they have two legit stars in Aldridge and DeRozan, but I think this could totally be a top 12 offense in the league this year. I think that's probably what they are. The concern for me, I think it's probably more like a bottom 10 defense, which could keep them out of the playoffs. I like so much about this team. They're just lacking a little bit in star power, experience, and the defensive ability. But you think they're making the playoffs. Why do you disagree?
I don't know, honestly.
You just have the feeling.
I really like De'Aaron Fox. That's kind of the only thinking going into here. And it's really tough picking against the Spurs. I love the Spurs and how they play, but I think DeRozan and Aldridge might take a step back this year because of age. And it's really hard picking against Aldridge because he just seems to age like fine wine.
I know, he does.
But I am picking against the Spurs and Popovich, which may be dumb on my part, but I am going to take the Sacramento Kings. I really love this young unit.
And the Kings, you hear every NBA expert say, you know, they're like their favorite league pass team, and I concur outside of the Denver Nuggets, but I love watching the Kings. So now let's take it to the last team in the Pacific Division, the Phoenix Suns. Our Phoenix Suns, as we're now residents of the wonderful state of Arizona and the beautiful city of Phoenix. I have them going 27-55, finishing 14th in the West. What do you have?
I have them finishing 25-57 as the 13th team in the West. What an embarrassing offseason for the Suns. Absolutely embarrassing. You have such a high pick. You traded for Dario Saric and you draft Cameron Johnson?
Well, let's talk about the pick. So give me your initial thoughts on that trade when you heard about it.
Don't get me wrong. I used to like Saric a couple years ago because I thought he was going to take over the league and be the next big-time guy out of the EuroLeague. And Saric isn't a bad player. He's not a bad acquisition for the squad. I just think the Suns gave up too much for a player such as Saric. And then you turn around and use the pick that you received for a 23-year-old? I don't get it. Cameron Johnson wasn't even projected to go until mid-20s.
Yeah.
And you take him at 13.
Here's 11. It wasn't 11?
It may have been.
I think it was 11. Here's the thing. To me, that decision was obviously highly criticized. But to me, this is a bad draft. And I think if you have your guy, you can add value to get him. Go do it. And plus, at least you know that you're getting great shooting from Cam Johnson. So I understand the criticism. To me, I just was not high on this draft as a whole. So I thought if they were willing to go up and get someone, there's nothing wrong with that.
The one pick I really did love was Ty Jerome. I'm a Ty Jerome guy. He is, after watching UVA for 5 years now, Ty Jerome, an amazing playmaker, an amazing shooter, and he's a winner now. They got taken out by, of course, UVA got eliminated by UMBC in the first round a couple years ago with Ty Jerome running point, and then they win a national championship. Ty Jerome, championship material, great shooter, great playmaker. I really like the acquisition, and hopefully he gets big minutes off the bench. But, of course, the big superstar in Phoenix is the one and only Devin Booker.
So just to talk about the backup point guard position a little bit, which is funny, we're getting into this so early, but it's something that I wrote down that interests me because you have Ty Jerome, you have Elio Kobo, and you have Javon Carter all competing for that spot, and they all have talent in their own ways. Jerome, obviously, as you mentioned, mostly as a playmaker, but also with that shooting ability and the all-around touch. Okobo is sort of an all-around offensive player. Carter is a 3-and-D point. Okobo and Carter both had sort of ugly rookie campaigns. I still like Okobo as a talent. I think his shooting's better than what he showed as a 29.5% three-point shooter last year, but you brought up Devin Booker. That is what the people are here for, I'm sure. I have a little game for you because obviously a lot of things are going to go wrong for the Suns this year, I think. Last year, they were 19-63, 28th in offense, 29th in defense. I don't know how they're really getting better from that, but let's guess Devin Booker's stat line for this year. What do you say?
I could go 26, 6-2.
Yeah, I don't think that's far off. I'm going to go, that's 6 assists, correct? I'm going to go, well, last year he was at like 27, 4-7, I think. So I'm going to go with 26.5, 5, and 6.5.
The only thing that could impede his assist numbers probably are the acquisition of Ricky Rubio, which Ricky Rubio's not a bad point guard. He's kind of like Lonzo Ball. I mean, he's not a great shooter. He's a decent rebounder. He's a decent assist guy. Just why would you pay Ricky Rubio? Go get a young point guard. Go do something else. I don't understand the acquisition.
Yeah, obviously that is one of the weirder decisions of the offseason. Ricky Rubio with that 3-year, $51 million deal. How do he and Devin Booker play together? Because Booker has certainly grown to enjoy running point for this team. He's grown as a pick-and-roll ball handler and a playmaker, averaged 6.8 assists per game last year. And obviously Rubio's primary value, as you touched on, is playmaking. He's not a valuable shooter, and I don't think you can expect Devin Booker, who has, become the guy for this team, to just move back off the ball and start coming off picks like it's Kentucky and he's an 18-year-old sixth man.
I agree with you. I think that the Ricky Rubio acquisition didn't make a whole lot of sense because of the points that you're making. Devin Booker ran point last year for this team. There's no way around it. He ran point guard. I think it would just be smarter to have him at point. He's a decent guard, a decent point guard, excuse me. He's a much better scorer than he is an assist man, but I think this offense would flow a lot better if they just had another shooter instead of Ricky Rubio.
Yeah, so to bring it to the young guys, 2 guys to watch this year, in my opinion, are DeAndre Ayton and Mikal Bridges. Ayton can score inside. He can rebound. We know this. To me, one of the questions, can he extend his range? He showed off occasional 3-ball ability in college, didn't show it at all last year. And can he improve on defense where he has so much physical potential? What do you think?
You're right. I loved Ayton's rookie campaign, and I love Mikal Bridges. I think they're going to continue to improve, and Ayton's going to dominate the league, I think, a little bit this season.
Really?
As you said, he's more of a post presence, which is kind of it's almost going extinct in today's NBA. So I do think he needs to develop a little more of a jump shot. Mikal Bridges, I'm a huge fan of. He's a great defensive asset. Yeah, and Bridges obviously had a nice rookie campaign. Just make sure he stays on that upward trajectory. I don't think the ceiling is too high, but as a 3-and-D wing, he certainly has value. So how about we talk about Kelly Oubre a little bit? Okay, so in my opinion,
when it comes to Oubre, we know what he is. He's a very handsome guy, but sort of an empty calorie scorer. He's inefficient. He's not good enough as an outside shooter. He shot 32% from three both last year and for his career. He's a poor rebounder, 3.7 rebounds per game for his career at 6'7". He doesn't play make at all, 0.8 assists per game in his career, and he's not engaged defensively. So I think he's a guy who sort of looks good on paper. I liked him early on in Washington just because I saw the skill, especially as a scorer, but the shooting isn't good enough, the playmaking's not there, and the defense isn't there.
You know, as people told you, was in the elevator, he's a good rebounder, you know?
I was told that he was a sneaky good rebounder, but I don't hold it against the people who said it. And now, of course, maybe the biggest question mark of all for the Phoenix Suns, can their coach last more than a year? Hopefully Monty Williams gets more than a year because you need more than a year to even show if you're a decent coach. He's now the fourth coach to start a season, or excuse me, the third coach to start a season in 5 years. Earl Watson got 85 games. Igor Kokoshkov got 82 games, which was just last year. And then I believe it was Jay Triano that filled in for almost a full season for Earl Watson 2 years ago. Monty Williams, we know, is a decent coach, but is he going to get the leash to, just try to figure things out with this young team?
As the front office has showed in the past, he's not. It seems pretty obvious to me that he's not going to with their track record. And I am amazed that Devin Booker is this consistent with all these different head coaches. I think it's a testament to his ability as a player that he can succeed in a bunch of different offensive systems and behind a bunch of different coaches.
Yeah, and Booker is really an extraordinary offensive talent, I think. When you talk about the combination of shooting, ability to attack the rim, and playmaking, we'll see where his career goes. We'll see if Monty Williams can stick around. But I think that's going to wrap things up for the Pacific Division.
No, I just want to crap on the Suns front office real quick.
Yeah, okay, go ahead.
Why'd they cut Jimmer for debt, man? What's going on?
Yeah, that's really, to me, is a sign. That's why, Ryan McDonough, what an idiot.
That's about it. Yeah, I got nothing.
All right, that's going to wrap it up for us today, guys. Thank you so much. We're going to be coming back next Saturday with an episode previewing the Southwest Division. I've been Carson Braber.
I've been Logan Camden.
And this was Hoop Nerds. Please make sure to follow us on social media, on Instagram @Nerd Sesh and on Twitter @Nerd_Sesh.